The late summer sun lounged lazily above Meadowlark Meadow, turning the tall grasses into ripples of gold. Vendors fluttered like bright birds between their stalls. Copper pots of lemon ginger tea simmered beside baskets of strawberry scones, and a faint patter of rehearsal drums drifted on the warm breeze. I'd signed up to help the Meadowlark Music Festival, mostly because my bookshop was quiet this time of year, but also because I couldn't resist a weekend of picnics, chamber music, and the sweet smell of freshly cut hay. By 2 o'clock, I had already directed a brass quintet to the cider tent and rescued a cello from an over-curious toddler. My badge, Maeve Thistlewood, Green Room Coordinator, jingled on its little lanyard as I hurried backstage to check the headliner's dressing area. Victor Rinaldi, the superstar violinist, had arrived with exactly the amount of hush one expects when a world-famous Stradivarius is in tow. His instrument, nicknamed Luna, was older than our town library, and valued at more than every building on Main Street combined. I found Victor at the edge of the meadow, running scales so quietly you could barely hear them above the cicadas. The violin glowed under his chin like polished honey. "Miss Thistlewood, yes?" he called, lowering the bow. "Is there a secure spot for Luna while I freshen up?" "Right this way," I said, pointing to the temporary green room, a sturdy cottage-sized tent where artists could collect themselves before performing. Inside, Nora Caldwell, the festival director, had installed a locked wooden cabinet and armed it with a formidable padlock. Only Nora and I had keys. We placed Luna inside. Victor tucked a lavender sachet next to the varnished ribs. "Keeps the summer bugs away," he winked before disappearing to change into tails. Outside, the festival rippled toward its crescendo. Celeste Harper, a luthier who curated the antique instrument exhibit, was polishing a display violin that looked suspiciously like Luna's twin. "An 18th century French copy," she told anyone who lingered. "A reminder that great artistry can be reproduced, but never replaced." Her soft southern accent made everything sound like a lullaby. Other personalities swirled about. Damien Reed practiced Paganini arpeggios by the cider tent, every flourish stabbed into the humid air like a challenge. He was younger than Victor, and rumoured to resent every ounce of the older man's fame. Max Porter, the stagehand, darted between amps and light rigs, headphones clamped over his wild curls. Except for the occasional smile at the harpists, Max mostly kept to himself. At 7, an orange-pink dusk settled over the meadow. Victor came back in full concert attire, a silver bow tie glinting against his black coat. He drew Luna from the cabinet, brushed his thumb lovingly along the neck, and stepped on stage as the MC announced his arrival. I slipped behind the wings to watch. The first note should have shimmered like liquid starlight. Instead, it screeched, a thin, metallic squawk that made the audience flinch as one. Victor's brow knit. He tried another note, slower. The E string buzzed like a housefly caught in a bottle. Murmurs rolled across the meadow. Victor withdrew, eyes wide. In the wings, he examined the violin's belly, then pressed a fingernail to its varnish. The colour was right, but up close I saw the giveaway. The grain of the spruce was too uniform. No swirling bear-claw figure, no tiny age dings. "This isn't Luna," Victor whispered. Panic clamped my ribs. Nora hurried over. Damien stopped mid-arpeggio. Celeste abandoned her exhibit. Even Max yanked off his headphones. The violin in Victor's hands was a replica, impressive but still a fake. Somewhere between the padlock clicking shut and Victor's first step on stage, A priceless Stradivarius had disappeared. Nora, face pale as paste, ordered Max to fetch the sheriff, while the stage manager located a loner fiddle so Victor could salvage the set. He played well enough, but even the untrained ears in the crowd sensed disappointment. When the last applause drifted away, I lingered near the green room, nauseated. I'd locked the cabinet. I'd kept my key on a chain tucked under my blouse. Somehow, I was still the last person who'd touched the real Luna. The sheriff arrived, a kindly man named Owen Pruitt, who handled stolen tractors more often than stolen violins. He promised to notify the state police in the morning, but until then the meadow remained open, campers milling about under strands of lantern light. Victor's face was drawn and grey. Looking at him, I felt a flare of determination. If the violin had vanished, it had done so within 100 yards and a couple of hours. That was a puzzle small enough for a bookshop owner who devoured mysteries between coffee breaks. I started by retracing my own steps. The padlock bore no scratches, the hasp no dents. Keys, then, yet mine was untouched, and Nora's dangled from her lanyard. Someone could have borrowed one of them temporarily, or copied the key. Suspect number 1, Max. Stagehands move in shadows and carry all manner of cutters, moulds, and files. While he coiled extension cords, I ambled over with 2 mugs of cocoa. "Long night," I said. "You hear the excitement? Hard to miss." He gave a lopsided grin, accepted the cup. His hands were nicked from rigging cables, but something glittered near his thumbnail, a smear of fresh varnish. He noticed my stare and shoved his hand in a pocket. Suspect number 2, Damien. Virtuosos cultivate egos like prized orchids. Perhaps stealing Luna was revenge for years of second billing. After his set, I found him by the fire pit, gossiping with a trio of conservatory students. Damien's fingers, slender, immaculate, held a ginger cookie. I offered a refill of hot cider and asked casually, "Rough gig for Victor, huh?" Damien's eyes flashed. He should guard his treasure better. People worship that instrument and forget the man holding it. He took a sharp bite of cookie, crumbs falling like snow. Jealousy, check. Opportunity? Possibly. He'd been warming up during most of the evening, but I hadn't tracked his every move. Suspect number 3, Celeste. She knew violins inside and out, owned a nearly identical copy, and had reason to protect her reputation as an expert restorer. I found her in her exhibit tent, rewrapping the French copy in muslin. When I mentioned the theft, tears shone behind her glasses. Luna is irreplaceable. Whoever took her has no heart. Her voice trembled, yet her hands moved swiftly, tightening knots with surgeon-like precision. I noticed specks of pale rose-coloured rosin on her apron, the same hue that had dusted Victor's replica. Nora, too, wasn't above suspicion. Festival insurance might pay handsomely. Still, she looked genuinely shattered, pacing with phone pressed to her ear as she tried to keep rumours from leaking to social media. I left her for last. My best starting clue was the varnish on Max's thumb. I found him loading cases into the equipment van. "Getting a jump on tomorrow?" I asked. "Nora wants everything locked up tight." His tone was light, but his gaze flicked nervously towards the shadows. I offered to help haul a duffel bag. It bulged oddly, and when I lifted it, gave a muted wooden thud, like a violin case cushioned by clothes. My pulse jackhammered, yet accusing him outright could spook a real thief. I heaved the bag onto a trunk, feigning strain. "You been working festivals long?" "First season. Heading back to school in the fall. Mechanical engineering." He zipped the duffel shut. "Look, Miss Thistlewood, they'll question everyone. I didn't do anything." His voice cracked. Guilt or anxiety? Hard to say. I needed evidence. Back at the green room, I examined the replica under a lantern. A faint smell of lavender clung to the fingerboard. If Victor kept sachets in his case, then whoever swapped the violins must have moved Luna's sachet with the fake to avoid detection. That was a thoughtful detail, a restorer's touch, perhaps. Across the meadow, Celeste's tent glowed amber. I slipped inside. Hanging from the central pole was a row of humidity gauges, high tonight, around 80%. On a workbench lay clamps, hide glue, and a tiny wedge of maple. My stomach sank. Excess moisture could crack antique varnish. Celeste had lectured about it earlier that day. Footsteps rustled behind me. Celeste appeared, carrying a lantern. "Maeve? You scared me half to death." "I'm sorry. I think you took Luna to protect it." The words spilled before I could second-guess them. "Humidity's brutal. You already had a replica ready. You swapped them, planning to fix some tiny issue, and intended to return it quietly. But something went wrong." Her eyes widened, then softened. She sank onto a stool. "You're perceptive, Miss Thistlewood." She folded her hands. "Yesterday, Victor asked me to inspect Luna. I found a hairline seam separation near the lower bout. Under tonight's humidity, a single fortissimo could have split it wide open. He brushed me off, said Strads survive wars and hurricanes." "So you intervened?" "I had a perfect replica in my exhibit, made years ago for educational purposes. My plan was to trade them after sound check, hide in my restoration van, repair the seam overnight, and switch back before sunrise. Victor would never know, and Luna would be safe." Her shoulders sagged. "But someone moved the van. Where is Luna now?" "The repair van should be at the north edge of the meadow, but I haven't been able to find Max to haul my generator. Without him, I couldn't risk walking alone through the dark with $1 million violin." Max again. If he'd moved the van, perhaps he'd discovered Luna inside the moment he opened the back doors. I pictured the bulging duffel. Could he be planning to return it and claim reward money? Celeste handed me a ring of keys. "I'll come too if you'd like proof." We followed a narrow path lit only by Luna moths fluttering around torches. The meadow sloped toward a fringe of pines where the equipment vehicles were parked. Celeste's van, cream-coloured with a stenciled treble clef, sat crookedly behind a row of amps. Its back doors were ajar. Inside, standing on a rug of sawdust, was Max. He froze when our lantern beams pinned him. In his hands lay Luna, still cushioned by lavender sachets. His eyes were rounded in helpless panic. I was bringing it back." I stepped forward slowly. "Start at the beginning, Max." He exhaled. "After the show crashed, I was tearing down cables. I saw Celeste's van parked near the green room. The door was unlocked, and I noticed the violin case. Thought maybe it was a spare for Victor. Curiosity got me. When I realized it was the real Luna, I panicked. I knew fingerprinting and all that. They'd think I stole it. I shoved it into my duffel to hide until I figured out what to do." He swallowed. "Then I couldn't find a chance to slip it back." Celeste closed her eyes in relief. "I only meant to protect the instrument, Max. I should have left a note." I inspected Luna. No new cracks, glue seams tidy. "We can still return her before dawn," I said, "and we'll explain everything together. Accidents end better than cover-ups." The three of us trekked back through dew-damp grass. In the green room, Victor paced like a caged hawk. When he saw the familiar case, he rushed forward, then stopped, gaze flicking between us. Celeste spoke first. I swapped Luna to prevent a seam separation from becoming catastrophic. I intended to repair it tonight. Max found her and feared he'd be blamed, so he hid the violin. It's intact. She lifted Luna out, letting Victor examine the rib seam now neatly glued and clamped with delicate cam clamps. He turned the instrument under the light. After a long moment, his shoulders sagged and a small, crooked smile appeared. "You likely saved her," he admitted, fingers brushing the mended seam. Then to Celeste, "I was arrogant. Thank you." Sheriff Pruitt arrived, notebook in hand. Victor waved him off gently. "No theft, Sheriff. Just a comedy of good intentions." Pruitt looked skeptical, but Victor signed a hastily drafted statement, clearing everyone of wrongdoing. By then it was nearly 2 a.m, but Nora insisted on hot chocolate all around. We gathered on quilt-covered hay bales, fireflies blinking like applause. Max apologized for the chaos. Celeste forgave him. I teased him about engineering students overthinking everything. Damien wandered in, curiosity prickling, and upon learning the truth, shook Victor's hand with surprising warmth. The next evening, with the meadow bathed in mellow amber, Victor walked on stage again. The first note of his encore floated over the crowd, pure, radiant, and absolutely unmarred. Luna sang as though nothing had ever interrupted her long, storied life. I leaned against the trunk of an oak and let the music wrap me in comfort. No dastardly villains, no tragic losses, just a chain of earnest miscalculations leading to a story that would age into festival lore. Cozy mysteries, I decided, feel a lot like chamber music. Several voices twining through discord toward harmony, tension resolving on a bright, satisfying chord. When the performance ended, Victor lifted Luna towards the sky in salute. And there, above Meadowlark Meadow, the moon, in full silver regalia, glimmered right back at her namesake,